So, I want you to meet, first of all, these young ladies parading in evening dress. Number 1, Miss Margaret Backhouse. Miss Backhouse is living in London. She comes from Saltash in Cornwall. She's aged 20, and she's a life vegetarian. Now, number 2, Mrs. Diana Bowder. Diana is aged 28. She's been a vegetarian for 10 years. She's the mother of a very young baby. Now, number 3.
In the springtime of every year, the vegetarians of Britain choose their beauty queen.
Gillian comes from Liverpool.
The manner of the contest is that of the Miss World competition. The great difference is that none of the beauties under scrutiny here eats of flesh, fish, or fowl, and that goes for most of the audience too.
And then one night we were watching a documentary on factory farming.
Yes.
And then when I realised, you know, my daily meat came from such places and the suffering involved, I decided that it couldn't be right.
Does it make you physically sick?
Yes, it does, as a matter of fact. Even having it in my mouth makes me feel quite ill.
So the taste of meat is never past your lips, as you might say.
No.
Think about that, ladies and gentlemen. Look on this fair beauty, this natural colour, and never ask the question again, can you get by without meat? It doesn't exist.
The judges, Judith Durham and Rupert Davis, are also vegetarians. They make their decision on the girl's physique, feminine charm, and the strength of her vegetarian conviction.
Miss Vegetarian 1971, Jane Thomas.
The first great occasions over which Miss Vegetarian will reign are the May meetings, when vegetarians from all over Britain gather to feel the strength of their numbers, to compare techniques, to measure the progress of the movement, and to have vegetarian fun. Miss Vegetarian's kingdom is an expanding kingdom, and one which looks saner now than it ever did before. Even 10 years ago, vegetarians were thought of as exceptional people, very soft in the heart, a little soft in the head. Now all kinds of human problems begin to make sense of it, from heart disease to soil pollution, from factory farming to overpopulation. You don't have to be a softie to be revolted by broiler chickens or twilight calves. You don't have to be a crank to realize that in a hungry world, raising livestock's an extravagant way of producing protein food.
And then you see, they say here that 300 weight of milk powder, that's powdered milk, you see, they dry the milk. And in those sacks, that could feed 24 children who are starving. But it can only produce 1 carcass of meat for people to eat.
One way and another, from hippie communes to exclusive health farms, vegetarianism is becoming fashionable. There are an estimated 100,000 vegetarians in Britain, and about 5,000 of them belong to the Vegetarian Society. The Society's president, Dr. Gordon Latto, reviews the territorial gains.
There are 25 vegetarian restaurants in London. 6 new ones have opened this year, giving us some idea of the progress of our movement. There are 700 health food stores in the country and over 2,000 outlets for vegetarian foods. So you can see the progress that is being made. Also, in the House of Commons, each day there is a vegetarian menu for those who desire it. And if one desires to have a meal on the British Railways, if this is notified 24 hours in advance, a very fine meal is produced. It gives one some idea of the trend of the times.
Would you like another taste? The Irish seaweed, or dulse, and I made a vegetarian beer with it, using that instead of the fish, because the fish tastes of the sea, not the sea tasting of the fish, and the dulse tastes of the sea. And I think makes a rather exciting dish without any of the creatures being killed.
It's only fairly recently the Western world has become interested in soya bean, though of course for years, for centuries in fact, it's been almost the mainstay of the East. In fact, they say that the Chinese nation owes its survival to the soya bean.
It makes a lovely flavouring with the mushrooms.
When you can't eat meat, you take a lot of interest in what you can eat. When vegetarians rally, they set out to prove that vegetarian food isn't only cabbage.
First of all, we have half a pound of dates, and I'm using today the marigold date. I've stoned these, and I'm putting them together in a basin. And this is a pastry blender. I expect you've seen it, but you must have a strong one.
Will all competitors kindly make sure they've got a number?
The May meetings end with a display of vegetarian athletic prowess and physical fitness. That vegetarianism is a healthier way of life is one of the main planks of their platform.
Magic muscle oil, that is. 9 rubbing oils. That's come from a health food shop. It's, they know exactly how to perform, you know.
Yeah. And do you think that being a vegetarian has any effect on your athletic performance?
Yes, I think it provides greater stamina in the fact that you use less energy with your body functions to digest vegetarian food as against eating meat. So therefore you've got more energy left in your muscles and, you know, to provide more stamina.
They're proud of their athletes who prove you don't need to feed on raw meat to grow big, strong and competitive. Vegetarians claim 4 Olympic marathon winners. Murray Rose won 3 swimming gold medals at 17, and their cycling club claims many national records.
4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Not that many records are being smashed today, this is more of a proclamation of purity and fitness. Many people become vegetarians for health reasons, and vegetarians proclaim pretty convincingly that the human animal with its long bowels, its masticating jaws and its sweat pores was never designed as a flesh-eating animal at all. We came from the ape, they say, not from the tiger. So look at me. My bowels are free from putrefactive bacteria. My arteries are clear of fatty deposits. My system is uncontaminated by livestock fattened on antibiotics and compounds of copper and arsenic. But for most vegetarians, any health benefit is incidental. Dr. Alan Long gives the driving reason for most of his kind.
Well, I think it's an expression of compassion. Compassion is a part of many philosophies and religions. And compassion is only of any good if it's put into practice. And we are trying to put into practice, albeit imperfectly, but trying to make some sort of effort to put that compassion into practice. Now, this is important. It's not just a rather fuzzy idea, sentimental idea about animals, but it is a meaning, putting a meaning behind the words. You find that righteous people will condemn violence in youth, for instance, and the vigour and the boisterousness of youth, and then they'll sit down to a table which has been stocked for them by the aptly named services of butchers, slaughterers, knackers. Now, compassion doesn't mean anything in those circumstances. We're trying to overcome that and give the word compassion some meaning. And the grace that's said before many meals, to my mind, is a fraud. It's a fraud because if one thought about that meal and where it came from, how the food was produced, how the animals were kept, how they were slaughtered, one will be ashamed to eat it. The vegetarian is free or almost free from that guilt. He can sit down to a meal and he can be happy to contemplate that meal from the time the farmer sowed the seed to the time the manufacturer and the cook put it on his plate.
It's one thing to hold principles, another to live up to them. Being a vegetarian housewife is easier than ever before, and Annie Burnham manages it on £5 a week for her family of 3. But it still isn't all that simple. In these days of convenience foods, there are hidden traps lying on every supermarket shelf. Bread, cake mixes, jellies, blancmanges, soups. You need to examine them all.
That's corn oil, so that's fine, that could be okay. Groundnut oil's okay as well, but if it just says cooking oil, the chances are it's very probably not vegetarian, so you don't bother.
It'll have animal fat in it or what?
Yes, probably whale fat or something like that, I would think. But,
There's even some reservation about cheese, is there?
Yes.
You have to be a bit careful about it.
Well,
why? What might that have in it?
rennet, which is the chemical from a calf's stomach, the digestive fluids, and they use it to curdle a cheese or something.
You have to be careful even with things like vegetables, do you?
Yes, now, with something like frozen peas, you're safe, but if you get anything in white sauce, then that's very often probably not right.
It would seem possible to me for someone to become quite obsessed with wanting to know
and you do
whether...
come across an awful lot of cranks as well, and I think there's a very big difference between being reasonably careful and taking a reasonable attitude and getting really cranky about it. I think you can make yourself ill by being that cranky.
Annie Burnham's a life vegetarian. Her husband's a convert. His parents still find his ideas difficult to understand.
And if we go over there for Sunday lunch, they cook 2 meals, one for them and one for us. And they're very careful, very good that way. But when they come over here, they eat a meal on the way because they don't think they're getting enough nutrition from our food, I think.
Vegetarianism isn't all that usual even now. Don't you see some difficulties coming up for your own child?
Now it seems to be the sort of thing that's very much accepted. An awful lot of young people are macrobiotic and vegetarian and things, and bringing up their children like it, and everybody knows. And so I don't think he's going to have all the nasties pointed against him that we had pointed against us.
This did happen to you at school, did it? Can you remember any uncomfortable details of your life in those days?
To nicknames like Meatballs Campbell and things like this, which were so silly, and yet, I mean, when you're continually... you couldn't make friends because people couldn't get past this. I mean, I did have a few friends at school, obviously, but it was much more difficult to socialise when you had some big obstacle like this. In fact, even the staff at the schools, to a certain extent, used to join in, I think, because they just couldn't understand, especially how a child could hold such principles.
What's for lunch, please?
Egg and cheese pie, love.
Cabbage, baked potato,
rhubarb and crumble and custard.
At St Christopher's School, Letchworth, a vegetarian child need not feel the odd one out. They serve nothing but vegetarian food.
Spud.
Potato, Bridget.
Potato. Can you give me some butter, please?
Not all of the pupils are vegetarian, and not all come from vegetarian families.
Do you get fed up at all, Malcolm, during term time?
Well, sometimes, but I'm not all that fed up. I'm looking forward to supper because my mother gets meat for supper. She gets meat for supper instead of lunch.
You're a day boy, are you?
Yes.
Well, I think you can't really stop it because they've killed the animal already, and then you can't stop it. There's no point in not eating meat. Yeah. Because they've already killed it.
Here you're told that you must not eat meat. The school says this is a non-meat eating school. Someone must have reasons for deciding that this is a good thing to do. Can you think just for a moment what those reasons may be?
Well, being at a meat-eating school and watching other people eat meat, it just makes you feel sick. And being at a school like this, where there is no meat, well, it's just... I mean, there's only one school like this practically in the country. And so
Yes,
it's
do you think
good.
there ought to be more of them?
No. Not necessarily.
Ours is a vegetarian school. It's meant for vegetarians. Then if meat eaters come here, then they have jolly well got to put up with vegetarian food.
Why are you a vegetarian?
My parents are vegetarian and my family are.
Fine.
Well,
and that's really why, Simon, you're a meat eater, is it?
So new. No, I don't think so because...
Let Simon have it, yeah.
One of my parents is a vegetarian.
Yeah.
And
I don't take it from them. I take it because I want to eat meat, because I like it, and I'm jolly well going to eat. Yes, but and nothing on earth is going to stop me. I suppose being brought up as a vegetarian, when you're a child, I mean, you should be what your parents are, but when you're grown up, you should have your own reasons.
How do you think you'll react when you are grown up?
To be a vegetarian, because I just wouldn't like to, you know, see a fish on a table and just like to eat it.
You see, I've never eaten meat, and so I don't know what it tastes like, and so I have no temptation for it.
As far as I'm concerned, it's just as much taking life by killing off the plants.
I think man is really a coward. I think a great way to stop people eating meat is to say, if you want to eat meat, you can jolly well go and kill it yourselves.
Oh, it's a nice argument.
Then that would get the amount of meat eaten down a lot.
It relies an awful, terrible lot on what your parents are, because if you're brought up as a vegetarian, you just see the side of the point that it's horrible to kill animals. But if you're brought up as a meat eater, you see both sides of meat is nice and it's horrible to kill animals.
This is the young vegetarian West End scene. She shares your lettuce at somewhere like the Nutcracker or the Raw Deal or Cranks.
Can I have fruit yoghurt, please?
One. Or muesli, or
The Young Vegetarian Society has regular beanos, dances, coffee evenings, weekend rambles and group holidays. It's one of the growth areas of the movement. About half of the members are converts.
Yes, can I have a muesli, please? A muesli.
It's important to them to be able to meet other young people who feel the same way that they do. Many vegetarian girls, for instance, could not think of marrying, preparing meals and cooking for a meat eater.
divided in one section.
This is an open social evening where members can introduce interested friends.
Hello, I'm Peter Brown, the London Regional Organiser. It's Carol, isn't it? And Tricia and Sally. This is John, our chairman.
Hello.
Rosina, the other London Regional Organiser.
Hello.
Roger. Anthea. And John, our editor.
In general, vegetarians are not given to marching and banner carrying. They tend by nature to be retiring rather than militant. But the youth section does try to convince meat eaters of the errors of their ways, to carry their gospel into the flesh-eating world.
Yeah, I think there's definitely more life in the movement. We feel, I can't say that we feel more strongly about vegetarianism, the fact that we want to sort of make our point of view known to other people. So I don't really think this is true. But I do think that we are trying, as we are sort of younger and coming up into the sort of population, I think we do feel that there is a stronger feeling in all the young people today about this kind of thing, sort of more feeling about the condition of the world, not only vegetarianism, pollution, and all sort of things which are tied up, in my opinion, with it.
No, but I would have thought that a chap who was worried about slaughtering of beef would be slightly more concerned about killing of people as well. You know, I thought this would be a natural corollary, really.
Not necessarily. I mean, if two people want to shoot it out, good luck to them. They're capable of thinking it out for themselves. I would prefer it if they didn't, obviously. I think slaughter in any form is wrong. But I'm less worried about the human aspect in that sense. I mean, I'm worried about humans and I'm interested in ecology.
I'd rather, as he said, people didn't shoot it out with each other. But I'm afraid that I feel very small and not being able to do much about it. And I don't think these protest marches have the required effect. Particularly, they're getting more violent every day. And as a pacifist, I wouldn't like to join in a violent demonstration.
This is the kind of protest movement that young vegetarians do feel able to get into. The girls are on the march against the factory farmers, trying to work up a little sympathy amongst the citizens of York for the birds that are kept in cages.
you mostly against then, with this sort of thing? Is it actually against them being trapped up or actually, just being used for food?
Exploitation of living creatures for mankind.
Well, not the case.
And this is always with us to show the point, the idea of being caged up without movement.
Congratulations. Smart girls. Right up close to the bar, as close as possible.
They shouldn't keep these poor birds penned up in such small spaces. It doesn't seem natural.
Well, it's what they call factory farming now.
Factory farming, yes.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I'm more for the old-fashioned ideas of open spaces and the things that happened years ago.
Well, nowadays they're like machines, aren't they? And they're not animals at all.
Well, I've gone right off eggs.
Factory farming's driven some people off a lot more than eggs. Peter Roberts was a farmer. Now he leads a movement called Compassion in World Farming.
Well, it was a pretty big change, but we were really forced into it because we were dairy farming, and the economic pressures came onto us. We had either to intensify or get out. Now, most small farmers are pretty concerned with their cows. They get attached to them. It sounds rather sentimental, but it does happen. He sets his alarm for 2 o'clock in the morning to see if they're all right when they're calving. Then he rears them, and when they come into the dairy herd, he milks them twice a day. Now, at the end of that time, they go barren, and if he puts them in the local market, it's quite likely that they be bought by a dealer and sent over onto the continent. We weren't prepared to let this happen to our cows, and consequently, when we had some barreners, I took them down to the slaughterhouse and saw them killed before I left. It was what I saw there that made us become vegetarian.
Did you become a vegetarian before you gave up farming? Or was that the thing that happened after you gave up farming?
No, we became vegetarians while we were still at the farm, and it's a little bit contradictory, but we obviously had to continue sending animals to slaughter after we were vegetarians. But you live in an imperfect world, and the best thing you can do is make a gesture towards what you believe to be right.
Now, what exactly are we getting next, then?
Well, this is beef-style proto-veg, mince, hydrated once again for 3 minutes, a little onion and mushroom added to it, fried in oil first, and this one contains pork chunks in batter. This takes half an hour to hydrate.
Now, pork chunks, not real pork.
Well, I should say pork style. There we are. So you've got beef style there and pork style.
Now he and his wife market a meat substitute, a textured vegetable protein made from soya bean in a variety of meaty flavours.
Actually using it, do you think?
We have a few catering establishments using it, but you have made a point, really, that if you don't know what it is, and we've served this up to people, and they don't know, that they're not eating meat.
Do you really feel that this is going to be a practical proposition, that people are going to accept substitutes for their meat in this form?
Yes, I think so. I think we shall do a lot more good if we can convert 1 million people to be partially vegetarian. In other words, have their animal joint for the Sunday dinner and live on direct foods, that's to say direct from the plant foods for the rest of the week. 1 million people like that, far better for us than 1,000 people totally vegetarian.
Now, Beauty Without Cruelty was started about 11 years ago now. We started this because we wanted to tell people how animals are exploited. People obviously knew that a fur coat was a dead animal. But the assumption so often is that it's been carefully and painlessly killed and it's all right. But it is far from all right.
Now this is a gin trap. It's abolished in this country some years ago because it is such a diabolically cruel thing. The animal comes along and there's a bait put here, and when this is touched it snaps down, and that little creature is held by its paw. Its bone is shattered and the whole of its leg is mutilated. It's a prey to any other animal that might come along. It will die, of course, of exposure and starvation, and it may even, in its agony and desperation to get away, it may even bite off that paw and get away on 3 feet.
Isn't that beautiful?
That's really...
Beauty Without Cruelty is another ally of the vegetarian cause, a charitable trust set up to oppose and expose the misuse of animals in the clothing and the cosmetic industries. They make and sell animal-free substitutes at their boutique in Marylebone. Production and Marketing Director, David Whiting.
I mean, the first thing we can start off with, for example, is take a couple of tablets of soap. What do you think goes into producing soap? Have you ever thought about the cruelties and the unpleasant circumstances attached to the soap industry? Offal from the slaughterhouse, decayed bodies from the knacker's yard. Even, we understand now, certain domestic pets are put into the soap vat and melted down.
Is that quite general in the soap industry? Is the majority of soap made in that way?
Oh, yes, indeed. Practically all soap is made from raw soap chips, which are byproducts of the slaughter industry in the knacker's yard.
Because I suppose the answer to this would be that the animals are killed anyway, and this is a byproduct.
That is indeed quite true, but we are talking about cosmetics. We like to think we're washing with flowers, not with old cats and horses.
What about the more exotic and expensive items in the industry? Perfume, for instance.
Well, I'm very glad you mentioned perfumes in particular. We have a couple of small bottles here. Yes, perfumes, of course, are basically a blend of flower essences and oils. Now, these essences and oils will evaporate away quite quickly unless you put a fixative with them. And in the French perfume industry in particular, it's been traditional to put a number of animal fixatives. These main fixatives now are ambergris, which is obtained from the whale, a most beautiful mammal. It can be obtained naturally from the whale or by killing the whale. Castoreum, which is obtained from a pouch just behind the sex glands of the beaver. We have civet, which is probably, I think, the worst of the cruelties involved in the perfume industry. The little civet cat is kept in Ethiopia in large huts which are kept at about 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The animal is baited very, very frequently, and about once every 10 days the animal is withdrawn from its cage, hung up by its hind legs, and the musk pouch, again just behind the male sex glands, is scraped.
When you say it's baited, what do you mean by that?
Oh, pushing sharp sticks and things actually into the cage to aggravate this poor creature which is kept in captivity, which I might add has a maximum lifespan of something like about 4 years in captivity.
Can you claim that your own products are absolutely free of any cruelty to animals or animal content even?
We don't use any bones, and certainly we don't use any estrogens or placentas. Even human placenta is becoming very much the in thing for the anti-wrinkle creams.
That's in the commercial industry.
That is in the commercial industry, indeed, yes. Placenta is one of the fashions within the cosmetic industry. Previously, placenta was used by terminating the pregnancy of cows prior to about 3 months because a number of side effects were noticed in the hormone content of the placenta. But now the animal placenta is being superseded by human placenta from the hospitals. And it's very much a case of what you like putting on your face. Frankly, I don't.
Even mature, lifelong vegetarians must spend most of every day earning their living in a world of meat eaters. And they're likely to have to explain themselves at every meal. They find it pleasant and necessary to relax when they can, in the company of their own sort.
That's sweet corn and asparagus flan. That's mushroom, onion and cheese.
These are members of the committee of the East Surrey Vegetarian Society meeting for an informal dinner party.
Ask for a tray and
Oops.
Thank you so much.
Have you got a knife, Esme?
Yes, thank you.
yes.
No, I'll get would you like a baked potato?
Can I help you to a knife? Decorated them
Yes,
with
please.
something.
Thank you.
But even here, they talk of food and cooking, and there's a good deal of ethical vegetarian conversation.
It's in the fringe elements, I think, where an item, perhaps a sweet course, could have vegetable fat or it could have animal fat. And if you don't know your host or hostess very well, I think it's doing our image no good at all if we make it look as we're extremists and refuse because we have doubts in that limited area.
I quite agree. I mean, you wouldn't sort of cross-question our hostess, would you, as to whether it's got suet or not? I think you've got to accept it in good grace if you discover it. And after all, we do say that we won't knowingly eat.
That's right. The word knowingly is important.
Don't we?
Knowingly.
Yes, there is a point too that if you were not a vegetarian, you wouldn't dream of asking your hostess what was in that
No, of course you
in a
wouldn't.
sort of critical sort of way, would you? So I agree with Neville that you've got to be very careful not to overstep the bounds of good behaviour when you're a guest, and yet stick to your principles without. So that you never knowingly eat anything that is not
that's
vegetarian.
the essence.
I think that's the
other people would carry this to the very limit,
Yes,
and they would definitely refuse. And I don't know. I think you've got to be fairly broad-minded about this sort of thing. Actually, we here are a fairly broad-minded party, aren't we? I mean, I think generally speaking. In fact, we've always tried to do this in the East Surrey. You know, to be fairly broad-minded, without going really contrary to our principles.
Same goes for a Christmas pudding.
Now, of course, I suppose if you carry it to its fullest limits, then you become a vegan. And, well, I've got every admiration for vegans, really, because this is the ultimate ideal. It's not so easy, though, when you're in business such as I am, to maintain this ideal to the very limit. And I think one's got to remain at the stage of being a good vegetarian, perhaps, for the time being, until you're ready for it. It isn't everybody that's really ready.
No.
Everybody who...
Mrs. Eva Bat is ready. She drinks no milk, eats no eggs, butter or cheese, uses no leather or wool. Overnight, she changed from a meat eater into a vegan.
But what just turned the scale, I can place, it was one definite incident, and it was while we were on holiday in Ireland. And there we saw firsthand something I'd never seen before, which was dairy farming. See, I was brought up in Dalston and Hackney, and I'd never been in the country at all when I was young, unlike him.
Creameries, they call them.
And, yeah, the creameries, they called them there, you're right. And on the railway station on one occasion, there were awful bellowing noise there, because there was a lot of cows at one end and a lot of calves at the other end, tiny baby calves, about a day old. And I inquired why they were all bellowing and why didn't they put them together and let them all be quiet. And the porter said to me, oh, well, the calves are bellowing for the cows and the cows are bellowing for the calves. Can't help that, missus, you see. I said, well, why? Why not let them be together? He said, oh, they're sold. The calves are being collected any minute now. They're going for pie meat. Pie meat? Yes, he said, nobody wants them much. Job to sell them. They fetch about 12 and 6 a head, that's all. Job to get rid of them, the farmers say. I said, well, why get rid of them, you know? Why not fatten them up and let's eat them? Oh, we get far too many, he said. I said, well, why do you get far too many? I was persistent about this because it was beginning to trouble me at last, you see. I said, well, you can't have milk, can you, without the cow has a calf? And, you know, until that time, I'd never thought of that at all. I thought of the lovely grazing calf in the beautiful meadow and how nice it was and how good the farmer was to go and relieve it of the milk when it gets uncomfortable. And he said, oh, yes, they have to have a calf every year. Otherwise, you wouldn't get your milk for your tea, you know, miss. No, jolly, jolly, jolly. And there's one calf. He shoved its nose up against that window and it looked straight into my eyes, you know, as if he was saying something to me. I can remember that to this day. I'll never forget it. And I sort of made a promise to myself that what I learned this day would stop me from ever drinking any more milk. Sounds like a silly, sentimental old woman. I wasn't old then, though. I was only 49. And when we came back, I contacted the Vegetarian Society, and they told me that there was a group of people in this country who lived without milk, eggs, cheese, or butter, or any of those things. And they were called vegans. And I was so delighted to think that there was somebody else in the world who felt the same as I did, because in the first place I thought I was all alone. And You know, I'd be a little martyr and I was going to die. Terrible. Awful weekend I spent thinking about that.
Mrs. Batt became a vegan at 49, when the best of her milk-drinking days were probably over. But Mrs. Frances Howard is a vegan too. This is afternoon tea at the Howard household: fruit, nuts and coconut milk. Frances Howard is the mother of 2 young children and is raising them as vegans too. She has done since birth. To do that, you need a lot of determination and the cast-iron conviction that you're right, because everybody else will be convinced you're wrong and telling you so.
I set off with great confidence because my husband was brought up from birth as a vegan. So I just ate as much fresh food as possible, and birth was quite easy. And I breastfed as long as I possibly could.
How long was that?
20 months with the little boy and 24 months with the little girl.
How long was that? Yes, the whole of 2 years of the little girl.
Yes. I think it's necessary when they're babies, if you possibly can, to breastfeed them, because they get no more milk for the rest of their lives unless they decide to not be vegan anymore.
How did you keep your own milk up during that time? Because without drinking milk yourself, I would have thought this was very difficult.
Well, you need a certain amount of vegetable protein. Soya flour is very good, and cashew cream. And you also need a great deal of fresh food. That is, fruit is one of the best milk producers.
Were you ever groggy or ill during that time, anemic?
I was tired, but I thought it was worth it.
Oh, they're both growing children now. What is their daily routine?
Well, in the morning, they have an ounce of cashew cream, creamed cashew nut, which is very finely ground and easy to absorb. This is followed up by an ounce of dried fruit, approximately an ounce, and a piece of fresh fruit. Now that sets them off for the morning. They have something during the morning. He has cashew soya cream instead of milk at school, and a piece of fruit. And she has fruit during the morning when she fancies it. Then at lunchtime they have a cooked meal, which consists of baked potatoes, a little bit of boiled cabbage, and some cooked beans.
They come home for that, do they?
Yes, I bring the little boy home from lunch, and I continue to do it throughout his primary school days. Then at 4 o'clock, when I brought him home from school again, they have a fruit meal, which consists of what fruit they have and what we have in the house, whatever they like. And when I put them to bed, I give them some more fruit, some dried fruit and fresh fruit. This may seem a lot, but I'm a great believer in fruit as a food for human beings.
How did you meet your husband?
Well, I joined the Vegan Society, and in their journal there was an advertisement which was put in by a lady, Mrs. Howard, and she wanted to get together with some more vegans. So I wrote to her, and in visiting her, I met my husband. We weren't at first, we didn't decide to get married at first, but when we'd met 2 or 3 times, he decided he'd like to ask me to be his wife.
Now, could you at that time have married a non-vegan, do you think?
No.
No, why not? What was your...
Well, I just don't like the idea of marrying a man who's not weaned off milk.
Is there any particular reason for that, or is it a humanitarian reason, or what?
I just feel it's more masculine to be weaned off milk. More adult.
The man in Mrs. Howard's life was also brought up as a vegan. He's a water engineer and works in London. His Hitchin house is the headquarters of VegFam, a small relief charity which sends vegetarian food to famine areas and offers a vegetarian solution to the problems of mass starvation, which they believe the world will face within a few years. Mr. Howard's mother is the driving force behind VegFam. Was she brought up as a vegan?
No, I was not, definitely. I was brought up to eat meat and milk and cheese and bacon, which I always detested. But it was not until I was about 13 or 14, when I'd made friends with the animals in the fields, that I began to think well, why should somebody kill this beast for me? Because I couldn't do it myself.
Now, how did the rest of the world regard you in those days?
I was a proper crank, of course, but one develops a rhino skin over the years. So I just jogged along and I felt, well, this is for me, and I didn't die after a year, as my mother said, and my health improved and my heart got a bit better, and I carried on with it. When I got married, I was lucky because the man I met decided that he wanted me and he wanted to be in line with me, and he was in line with me to an extent, a certain extent, but he wanted to go the whole way, so he changed his diet because he was afraid if he didn't, he wouldn't get very far.
Now, you followed your mother's beliefs, Mr. Howard, and presumably you had to convince yourself when you grew up that you wanted to do this. Now, why did you want to be a vegan yourself?
Well, like most children, I grew up with a few nursery rhymes in which children are taught to be at one with animals, lambs for example. I think that a child, on seeing a lamb, would go to cuddle it, not to kill it, to eat it. And I have continued in that way of life, whereas contemporaries have not. They have gone to eating meat under their parents' influence.
Now, why do you think now, in the maturity of an adult life, you should be a vegan? Why have you been right?
On being a vegan, I beg your pardon, by virtue of being a vegan, the land that I personally use to produce my diet is far smaller than that corresponds with a meat eater, or rather a person taking both meat and other plant foods. For example, 1.64 acres can feed 5 people on a vegan diet, whereas the same amount of land would only feed 1 person who is consuming meat and plant foods.
For a vegetarian, old age, like school days, can be a time of trial. Principles come under pressure when there isn't much strength left to support them. To a busy nursing home matron, the beliefs of a lifetime may appear to be merely the troublesome fads of old age. But the lucky few may secure a place in one of the 2 homes organised by members of the Vegetarian Society. In this home at Hastings, they can sleep sound, certain that during the day they've eaten nothing of flesh, fish or fowl. The warden, herself 76 years old, explains the sort of fears they have.
Now, many hospitals or nursing homes might think that a soup with meat, just with meat juices in it, is quite all right for them. They wouldn't mind perhaps even deceiving them into this, and they wouldn't realise they were having a meat extract in their food. And this sort of thing is very distressing to the mind of a person elderly who knows that this can happen to them. They must be in a place where they can trust every article of food which they have to consume.
Even when elderly vegetarians are very ill, do they still worry about holding to their principles?
Most vegetarians who are vegetarians on principle, not for health reasons, on principle, would say, I don't want to get better at the expense of cruelty to any animal. And they'd say, I would rather be allowed to fade out on my vegetarian food than have meat food, which a doctor might consider better for me.
Now, looking back on your lives now, as vegetarians, do you feel that being a vegetarian has made a difference, not only to the way you eat, but the way you are and the way you feel?
Oh, an enormous difference, I think. It's all part of the whole scheme, you see, of one life, isn't it? That's, I think, what we're all feeling. That life is a whole, from the mineral kingdom up to the spiritual. I've even known theosophists again, to bring that in, kick stones out of their way because they feel that that is the best way. The idea being that we enter the lowest form of life, which is the mineral, and work our way up, say. And the best way to induce consciousness in the mineral world is to treat it rough, make it conscious. I have literally seen that happen.
I don't think I should have been a vegetarian if it wasn't for the Theosophical Society. When I joined the Theosophical Society, they made me realize that we had to consider the animal kingdom as well as the human, and the cruelty entailed with regard to the killing for feeding simply made one realize that to eat meat was no longer for one. And then one realized that it did affect the inner side of one's life, and studying the inner side of one's life. And then coming on to Krishnamurti, which makes a whole of one's being. His philosophy is the whole of one's being, and that made a very great difference to one's life from beginning to end. And as one gets older, one realizes there is that fundamental something, that inner life that nothing can touch, nothing can destroy, which makes a very beautiful ending for one's life.
And this is a beautiful beginning. The wedding day of Rosemary Ann and Ian Michael Heathcote. It's an ideal match. Both are vegetarian, and so are most of the guests at the wedding.
Miss Isabel Reed.
Rosemary and Ian met through the vegetarian youth section. Already for them, not eating meat is a bond, part of a philosophy of gentleness that will grow stronger through the years. In a mixed marriage, it can become a barrier to break upon.
Yes, I have met you. Yes, in Bedford.
Mrs. Gwendolyn Austin.
To them, as to most vegetarians, it's not just a matter of diet. It's a matter of right and wrong, of good and evil. So there's been no blood spilt to provide their wedding breakfast. They couldn't bear it otherwise. Nor could their parents, all vegetarians, and all delighted that things have fallen out so neatly.
Oh yes, naturally I wanted him to marry a vegetarian, but of course, as my husband has said, it was entirely up to him to make the choice. But we were very delighted when he chose a vegetarian.
Oh, she's had non-vegetarian boyfriends, and they've usually liked the meals they've had with us. But it is better that they do marry vegetarians. We're very pleased that she has done so.
And I think it makes for a happier marriage. And it is, of course, the case that one is not always a vegetarian, but often becomes one afterwards. But I think if they can start together, of course they have that in common, which is a great help.
Ladies and gentlemen, the bride and groom are about to cut the cake.
That's it.
Done.